The sun hung low over the Great Smoky Mountains, casting a golden haze through the dense canopy of hemlock and spruce. The air carried the sharp tang of pine and the faint musk of damp earth, stirred by a late summer breeze that whispered through the trails of Cades Cove. It was August 15th, 2022, and the national park buzzed with the quiet rhythm of nature. Crickets humming, a distant woodpecker tapping, the occasional rustle of a deer through the underbrush. For 27-year-old Lila Harper, this was paradise, a place where the world's noise fell away, leaving only the steady cadence of her footsteps on the Abrams Falls Trail. Lila was no stranger to these mountains. Born in nearby Gatlinburg, Tennessee, she'd grown up exploring the Smokies, first with her father on family camping trips, then alone as a teenager, sketching wildflowers in a worn notebook. Now, as a graphic designer who worked remotely, she treated her morning hikes like a ritual, a way to ground herself before the day's demands. She was meticulous about it, always the same trail, always at dawn, always with her navy blue Osprey backpack stuffed with a water bottle, a granola bar, and her sketchbook. Her friends teased her about her predictability, but Lila loved the routine. "It's not just hiking," she told her roommate Sarah the night before, her hazel eyes bright with conviction. "It's like the forest knows me." That morning, Lila had left her small apartment at 5:30 a.m., her beat-up Subaru Forester rumbling down the quiet streets toward the park. She texted Sarah a quick, heading out back by 9, as she always did, her phone pinging in the cup holder as she drove. At the trailhead, she parked in her usual spot, a gravel pullout near a weathered sign for Abrams Falls. She slipped on her hiking boots, tied her dark hair into a loose ponytail, and snapped a quick selfie with the misty valley in the background. "Another perfect morning," she captioned it, posting it to her Instagram story at 6:02 a.m. Then she locked her car, slung her backpack over one shoulder, and started up the trail. The Abrams Falls Trail was a 5-mile round trip, moderately strenuous with its rocky switchbacks and slick routes, but Lila knew every twist. She moved with the ease of someone who'd walked it 100 times, her boots crunching on gravel, her breath steady as she climbed. The forest was alive around her, the gurgle of Abrams Creek, the faint scent of wild mint, the cool air brushing her bare arms. She paused once, crouching to study a cluster of trillium, their white petals stark against the green. She'd have sketched them if she weren't so intent on reaching the falls before the day warmed. By 9:30 a.m., Sarah was pacing their apartment, her phone clutched in one hand. Lila's text had promised she'd be back by 9, and Lila was never late. Sarah tried calling, but the call went straight to voicemail, unsurprising, given the park's spotty cell service. Still, a knot of worry tightened in her chest. She sent a quick message. "Hey, you okay? Where you at?" No response. By 10, Sarah was in her car, driving the 20 minutes to the Cades Cove trailhead, her mind racing through possibilities. A twisted ankle, a wrong turn, a dead phone battery. When Sarah pulled into the gravel lot, Lila's Subaru was there, parked neatly beside a rusted trash can. The sight of it, unchanged, untouched, sent a chill through her. She approached the car, peering through the driver's window. Lila's water bottle sat in the center console, her keys dangling from the ignition. A folded map of the park lay on the passenger seat, next to a half-eaten protein bar. Nothing looked wrong, but that was what made it worse. It was as if Lila had stepped out for a moment and simply didn't come back. Sarah called 911 at 10:17 a.m., her voice trembling as she explained the situation to the dispatcher. "She's not here," she said, her eyes scanning the empty trailhead. "Her car's here, but she's not. She's always back by now." The dispatcher's calm questions. "When did you last hear from her? Does she have any medical conditions?" did little to ease the panic rising in Sarah's throat. Within an hour, a park ranger's truck pulled into the lot, followed by a Sevier County Sheriff's deputy. Ranger Tom Ellis, a wiry man in his 50s with a sun-weathered face, took Sarah's statement while the deputy, a young woman named Deputy Claire Monroe, examined Lila's car. "She's hiked this trail every week for years," Sarah told Ellis, her hands twisting the hem of her shirt. "She knows it like the back of her hand. Something's wrong. I know it." Ellis nodded, his expression steady but grim. He'd seen cases like this before. Hikers lost in the vastness of the Smokies, where 520,000 acres of forest could swallow a person whole. But Lila's routine, her familiarity with the trail, made this feel different. "We'll start a search," he said, resting a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "We'll find her." By noon, the trailhead was a hive of activity. A search and rescue team from the National Park Service arrived, their radios crackling as they coordinated with volunteers from Gatlinburg. A K-9 unit, 2 German shepherds and their handler, set off down the Abrams Falls Trail, the dogs' noses low to the ground. Sarah stood by Lila's car, watching as rangers unfolded topographic maps and marked grids with red pens. The air was thick with humidity now. The morning's coolness burned away, and the forest seemed to loom larger, its shadows deeper. Deputy Monroe found the first clue. Just before 1 p.m. near the trailhead, half buried in the dirt, was a single shoelace, navy blue, like the ones on Lila's hiking boots. It was frayed at one end, as if it had been torn off. Monroe bagged it carefully, her gloved hand steady, but her jaw tightened as she handed it to Ellis. "Could be hers," she said quietly. "Could have snagged on something." Sarah overheard, her face paling. "That's hers," she whispered. "She always double knots them. She's so careful." The search intensified. Helicopters buzzed overhead, their blades chopping through the humid air. Volunteers fanned out along the trail, calling Lila's name, their voices echoing off the ridges. The K-9S picked up a scent near the falls, but it faded at the creek's edge, where the water rushed over slick rocks. By dusk, the team had covered 3 miles of the trail and its offshoots, finding nothing more. No footprints, no dropped items, no sign of a struggle. The forest, so inviting at dawn, now felt impenetrable, its beauty masking 1,000 hiding places. Sarah stayed at the trailhead until night fell, her eyes red from crying, her phone battery nearly dead from checking for messages that never came. Ranger Ellis tried to persuade her to go home, but she shook her head. "I can't leave her out here," she said, her voice breaking. "She's out there, and she's alone." Ellis didn't argue. He'd seen this kind of devotion before, the kind that held on even when hope started to slip. As the first stars appeared above the Smokies, the search was called off for the night. The Rangers set up a command post at the trailhead, their flashlights cutting through the dark. Sarah sat in her car, staring at Lila's Subaru, its windows now fogged with condensation. The shoelace, that small, ordinary thing, haunted her. It was too small to mean much, but too specific to mean nothing. Somewhere in the vast, silent forest, Lila was gone, and the mountains weren't telling their secrets. The next morning, the search would resume, but already a question hung in the air, unspoken but heavy. How does someone who knows a trail so well simply vanish? The morning after Lila Harper's disappearance, the Cades Cove trailhead in the Great Smoky Mountains was transformed into a nerve center of organized chaos. By 6 a.m. on August 16, 2022, the gravel lot brimmed with activity. Park ranger trucks, sheriff's department SUVs, and a cluster of volunteer vehicles parked haphazardly along the road. The air was heavy with the scent of dew-soaked grass and the faint hum of gasoline from a generator powering a command tent. Radios crackled, dogs barked, and the low thrum of a helicopter echoed off the ridges. The forest, which had seemed so serene the day before, now loomed as an adversary, its vastness swallowing every shout of Lila's name. Ranger Tom Ellis stood at the center of the command post, his weathered hands gripping a topographic map of the Abrams Falls Trail. At 53, he'd spent nearly 3 decades in the Smokies, leading searches for lost hikers, injured climbers, and the occasional runaway teen. But something about Lila's case gnawed at him. Her car, untouched at the trailhead, and that frayed shoelace, navy blue, just like the ones on her boots, felt too precise, too out of place. He glanced at Sarah, Lila's roommate, who sat on a folding chair near the tent, her face pale and her eyes fixed on the trail's entrance. She hadn't slept, and her hands clutched a styrofoam coffee cup that had gone cold hours ago. "We've got 3 teams on the ground already," Ellis told Deputy Claire Monroe, who was coordinating with the Sevier County Sheriff's Office. K-9S are working the trail, and we've got a chopper doing aerial sweeps. If she's out there, we'll find her." His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed doubt. The Smokies spanned over 520,000 acres, with dense forests, steep ravines, and creeks that could wash away ascent in hours. Finding one person was like searching for a single leaf in a storm. The search and rescue operation was massive, one of the largest in the park's recent history. 24 rangers and volunteers fanned out along the Abrams Falls Trail, their orange vests bright against the green. The K-9 unit, led by a handler named Mike Delgado, worked with 2 German shepherds, Rusty and Luna, whose noses were trained to pick up human scent. Delgado moved methodically, letting the dogs zigzag across the trail, their ears twitching as they sniffed rocks, roots, and patches of mud. A drone team from Knoxville arrived by 8 a.m., their equipment buzzing overhead to capture high-resolution images of the canopy, searching for anything, a flash of clothing, an unnatural shape, that might stand out. Sarah joined the volunteers, her sneakers sinking into the soft earth as she followed a group led by a ranger named Jenna Carter. Jenna, a wiry woman in her 30s, with a no-nonsense ponytail, handed out whistles and instructed the group to stay within sight of each other. "Call out her name every few steps," Jenna said. "If you see anything, cloth, trash, anything, don't touch it. Mark it and call me." Sarah nodded, her throat tight, and began shouting, "Lila, Lila, can you hear me?" Her voice cracked, swallowed by the forest's indifference. By midday, a promising lead emerged. A volunteer, a local retiree named Ed Grayson, found a scrap of fabric caught on a blackberry bush about a mile from the falls. It was small, no bigger than a hand, and faded green, like the tank top Lila had worn in her Instagram selfie. The discovery sent a ripple of excitement through the search team. Ellis and Monroe rushed to the site, where Ed stood guard, his face flushed with adrenaline. "It was just there," he said, pointing to the thorny bush. "Caught my eye 'cause it didn't look natural." Monroe bagged the fabric, her gloved hands careful not to contaminate it. "Could be hers," she said, echoing her words from the shoelace find. "We'll send it to the lab for fibers, maybe DNA." Sarah overheard, her heart lurching. She wanted to believe it was a sign Lila was close, but the fabric's frayed edges and the vastness of the forest made hope feel fragile. Ellis radioed for a second K-9 unit to focus on the area, but the dogs circled the bush and lost the scent, their whines signaling frustration. The search pressed on through the afternoon. Volunteers combed the trail's offshoots, poking through underbrush and peering into crevices. The helicopter swept low over the canopy, its pilot reporting no sightings of movement or color. At the falls, where Abrams Creek roared over a 20-foot drop, divers checked the pool below, their headlamps glinting in the spray. Nothing. The creek's current was strong, but not enough to sweep a person away, and there were no signs of a fall, no blood, no scuff marks on the rocks. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the emotional toll began to show. Sarah's voice was hoarse from calling Lila's name, her hands scratched from pushing through branches. She kept picturing Lila's smile, the way she'd hum folk tunes while sketching, the way she'd left her coffee mug half full on the counter that morning. "She's out here," Sarah whispered to Jenna, more to herself than anyone. "She has to be." Jenna nodded, but her eyes were distant. She'd seen searches stretch on for days, sometimes weeks, with no answers. At the command post, Ellis and Monroe reviewed the day's findings. The shoelace and the fabric were the only tangible clues, but neither was definitive. The shoelace could belong to any hiker, and the fabric's color was common enough to be coincidence. Still, they sent both to the state crime lab in Knoxville, hoping for a match to Lila's belongings. A witness report came in late in the day. A camper at a nearby site claimed to have seen a red pickup truck idling near the trailhead around 6:30 a.m. the previous day. The description was vague, no license plate, no clear view of the driver, but it was enough to spark a flurry of activity. Monroe dispatched deputies to check local registrations for red pickups, while Ellis requested traffic cam footage from the park's entrance. By nightfall, the search was paused again, the team exhausted and the forest cloaked in darkness. Sarah refused to leave, sitting in the command tent with a blanket draped over her shoulders. She stared at a photo of Lila on her phone, taken a month earlier at a Gatlinburg cafe. Lila was laughing, her hair catching the sunlight, a smudge of whipped cream on her nose. Sarah's chest ached. "Where are you?" she whispered, her finger tracing the screen. Ellis approached, his boots crunching on the gravel. "We're doing everything we can," he said, his voice softer than before. "Tomorrow, we'll expand the grid, bring in more dogs. We're not giving up." Sarah nodded, but her eyes stayed on the photo. She didn't trust herself to speak. That night, the command post glowed under floodlights, a small island of light in the vast darkness. Volunteers huddled in groups, swapping stories of Lila, her sketches, her love for the Smokies, her stubborn insistence on hiking alone. The forest, silent except for the occasional owl hoot, seemed to mock their efforts. The red pickup lead felt like a lifeline, but Ellis knew from experience that such clues often led nowhere. He stood at the edge of the tent, staring into the trees, the weight of the unknown pressing on him. Lila was out there, or had been. The question was whether the forest would give her up. The search would resume at dawn, but already the team sensed the challenge ahead. The Smokies were beautiful, yes, but they were also relentless, their secrets buried deep in the earth and shadow. The summer of 2022 faded into autumn, and the search for Lila Harper in the Great Smoky Mountains dwindled to a quiet, stubborn persistence. By late September, the command post at the Cades Cove trailhead was gone, the floodlights and radios replaced by the rustle of falling leaves. The massive search effort, hundreds of volunteers, K-9 units, drones, and helicopters, had yielded nothing beyond the navy blue shoelace and the scrap of green fabric, both of which sat in evidence bags at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation's lab in Knoxville. Tests confirmed the fabric matched Lila's tank top, but no DNA was recovered, and the shoelace was too common to be conclusive. The red pickup truck lead fizzled when traffic cam footage showed no such vehicle near the park's entrance on August 15th. 6 weeks after Lila vanished, the National Park Service officially scaled back the search, citing resource constraints and the unlikelihood of new evidence in the vast, rugged terrain. For Ranger Tom Ellis, the decision felt like a betrayal. He stood at the trailhead on the day the search was suspended, his boots sinking into the same gravel where Lila's Subaru still sat, now towed to an impound lot. "We're not giving up," he told Sarah over the phone, though his voice lacked conviction. "We'll keep her file open, follow any new tips." Sarah, sitting in her Gatlinburg apartment, stared at Lila's empty bedroom, her sketchbooks still stacked on the desk, her hiking boots by the door. "You're telling me she's just gone?" she asked, her voice hollow. Ellis had no answer. The Smokies had swallowed people before, but Lila's familiarity with the trail, her meticulous habits, made her disappearance feel wrong, like a puzzle with missing pieces. Sarah refused to let Lila fade into memory. She quit her part-time barista job to focus on keeping the case alive. She printed flyers with Lila's photo, smiling, her hazel eyes bright, her dark hair pulled back, and plastered them across Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and every trailhead in the park. She created a social media page, Find Lila Harper, posting daily updates, pleas for information, photos of the Abrams Falls Trail, snippets of Lila sketches. The page gained traction, amassing thousands of followers, many of whom were amateur sleuths speculating wildly. Lila had fallen into a ravine, been attacked by a bear, or run off to start a new life. Sarah read every comment, hoping for a real lead, but most were noise. She didn't run away. She snapped at a reporter from a local paper. Lila loved her life. She loved these mountains. Deputy Claire Monroe, meanwhile, kept the case on her desk, a thin folder dwarfed by stacks of other investigations. At 29, Claire was new to the Sevier County Sheriff's Office, but driven, her sharp mind drawn to details others overlooked. She spent evenings poring over witness statements, topographic maps, and weather reports from August 15th, searching for something missed. The shoelace nagged at her. Its frayed end suggested force, not wear. She requested a second lab analysis, but the results were the same. No DNA, no answers. Claire drove to the trailhead on her days off, walking the path Lila would have taken, her eyes scanning for anything. A broken branch, a scuff mark, that might hint at what happened. The forest, now golden with autumn, gave nothing away. As months turned into a year, the case grew cold. By August 2023, Lila's disappearance was a footnote in Park Service reports, a cautionary tale for hikers. Sarah's social media campaign continued, but engagement waned, drowned out by newer tragedies. Lila's parents, Ellen and Mark Harper, moved from Nashville to Gatlinburg to be closer to the search, their grief a quiet, constant weight. They held a memorial hike on the one-year anniversary, walking the Abrams Falls Trail with a small group of friends and locals. Sarah led the way, clutching one of Lila's sketchbooks, its pages filled with delicate drawings of trillium and ferns. At the falls, Ellen scattered wildflower seeds, her hands trembling. "She's still here," she whispered, though no one knew if she meant the forest or her heart. The community tried to move on. In Gatlinburg, shopkeepers stopped displaying Lila's flyers, and tourists hiked the trails unaware of the woman who'd vanished. But the case lingered in quiet conversations, at diners, in ranger stations, among locals who knew the Smokies' beauty could hide darker truths. Online, the Find Lila Harper page became a hub for theories, some outlandish. A serial killer stalking the park, a cult hiding in the mountains. Sarah ignored the wilder posts but followed up on every tip, no matter how small. One anonymous message claimed a hiker had seen a woman matching Lila's description near a remote fire tower days after she vanished. Sarah related to Claire, who tracked down the tower but found nothing. No footprints, no signs of a camp. In the summer of 2024, a new incident briefly reignited interest. A 19-year-old hiker, Ethan Cole, went missing on the nearby Gregory Ball Trail, 20 miles from Abrams Falls. His backpack was found abandoned, his phone dead but intact. The similarities to Lila's case, another young person, another trail, another sudden absence, sparked a flurry of media coverage. Reporters descended on Cades Cove, speculating about a pattern. Claire and Ellis were pulled back into the spotlight, fielding questions about possible connections. "We're looking at all angles," Claire told a Knoxville News crew, her face tight with frustration. Search teams scoured Gregory Bald, but Ethan's case, like Lila's, yielded no answers. His backpack contained a water bottle and a map, but no clues to his fate. By fall, his case, too, went cold, leaving the Smokies with 2 open wounds. Sarah felt the weight of time. She moved into a smaller apartment, unable to afford the one she'd shared with Lila. She kept Lila's belongings in a box, her sketchbooks, a pair of earrings, a worn flannel shirt that still smelled faintly of her cedarwood perfume. Every few weeks, she'd call Claire or Ellis, asking for updates, her voice a mix of hope and desperation. "Anything new?" she'd ask, knowing the answer. Claire would sigh. "Not yet, but we're still looking." Ellis, now nearing retirement, would add, "This case isn't closed, Sarah. Not for me." By early 2025, 2.5 years after Lila vanished, the case was a ghost in the Smokies. The forest had reclaimed the trailhead, its gravel lot now overgrown with weeds. Lila's Subaru was sold at auction, her flyers faded and peeling. But Sarah, Ellen, and Mark held on, their hope a fragile thread. They organized a second memorial hike, smaller this time, with only a dozen attendees. As they stood at the falls, the water roaring below, Sarah felt a pang of something like betrayal. The mountains, Lila's sanctuary, had taken her and offered nothing in return. Claire, too, felt the case's pull. Late at night, she'd sit at her desk, the folder open, her fingers tracing the map of Abrams Falls. She thought of the shoelace, the fabric, the red pickup that never materialized. "There's something we're missing," she told her partner, a veteran deputy who'd long since moved on. "Something right in front of us." The forest, with its endless ridges and hollows, seemed to agree, its silence both beautiful and cruel. The spring of 2025 arrived in the Great Smoky Mountains with a burst of color, wild azaleas blooming pink and orange along the Abrams Falls Trail, their sweet scent mingling with the damp earth. Nearly 3 years had passed since Lila Harper vanished, and the forest had moved on, its rhythms undisturbed by the human tragedy etched into its trails. On April 12th, a Saturday, the Cades Cove trailhead was quiet, save for the crunch of gravel under the tires of a battered Jeep driven by Margaret Peg Thornton, a 68-year-old retiree from Maryville. Peg, a wiry woman with silver hair and a penchant for bird watching, had taken to hiking the Smokies since her husband's death 2 years earlier. Her companion, a scruffy terrier mix named Biscuit, yipped from the passenger seat, eager for their weekly outing. Peg parked near the trailhead, her binoculars slung around her neck, and let Biscuit leap out, his nose already twitching. She planned a short hike, a detour off the main Abrams Falls Trail to a lesser-known clearing where she'd once spotted a pileated woodpecker. The clearing, tucked a half-mile off the path, was a tangle of ferns and fallen logs, its isolation perfect for spotting shy birds. As Peg navigated the faint trail, Biscuit darted ahead, his tail wagging furiously. Then, abruptly, he stopped, his body low to the ground, sniffing at a patch of disturbed earth near a rotting stump. "Biscuit, what V you got?" Peg called, her voice light but curious. She approached, expecting a squirrel's burrow or a discarded snack wrapper. Instead, she saw Biscuit pawing at something half-buried, a corner of faded blue fabric, its edges frayed but unmistakable as part of a backpack. Her stomach twisted. She knelt, careful not to touch it, and used a stick to nudge the soil. More of the backpack emerged, its straps tangled with roots, a rusted zipper glinting in the sunlight. Inside, partially exposed, was a plastic water bottle, a granola bar wrapper, and a small, weathered notebook with faint pencil sketches of flowers. Peg's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. She'd lived in the area long enough to know about Lila Harper, the young woman whose disappearance had haunted Gatlinburg. The backpack's navy blue color matched the descriptions plastered on old flyers. "Oh, Lord," she whispered, her eyes darting around the clearing. The forest, vibrant with birdsong moments ago, now felt oppressively still. Biscuit whined, pressing against her leg. Peg dialed 911, her voice shaky as she explained what she'd found. "It's a backpack out here in the woods. I think it might be hers. Lila Harper's." Within an hour, the clearing was a hive of activity. Ranger Tom Ellis arrived first, his heart pounding as he saw the backpack, its Osprey logo faded but identical to the one Lila carried. Deputy Claire Monroe followed, her face set with a mix of excitement and dread. A forensic team from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation cordoned off the area, their white suits stark against the green. Sarah, notified by Claire, drove to the trailhead, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles whitened. She stood at the edge of the scene, forbidden from approaching, her eyes fixed on the backpack as it was carefully extracted from the earth. "It's hers," Sarah said, her voice breaking as she spoke to Claire. "That's her notebook. She drew in it every hike." Claire nodded, her jaw tight. The notebook's pages, though waterlogged, showed sketches of trillium and ferns, Lila's handiwork, unmistakable to Sarah. The forensic team bagged the items, their movements methodical but urgent. A small crowd of locals and hikers gathered, drawn by the police presence, their whispers carrying Lila's name like a ghost summoned back. The discovery electrified the stagnant case. Ellis and Claire huddled with the forensic lead, Dr. Rachel Kim, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who specialized in trace evidence. Kim's team scanned the clearing with ground-penetrating radar, searching for more clues, while others sifted the soil for fibers or DNA. The backpack yielded a critical find, a single strand of hair, dark and fine, caught in the zipper. "Could be hers," Kim said, sealing it in an evidence bag. "Or someone else's. We'll rush it to the lab." Claire's mind raced. If the hair was Lila's, it confirmed she'd been here. If it wasn't, it could point to someone else. By evening, the lab in Knoxville had preliminary results. The hair's DNA matched Lila's, pulled from a hairbrush Sarah had provided years earlier. The backpack, too, was confirmed as hers, its serial number matching a receipt from Lila's apartment. But the notebook held something more disturbing. Tucked between its pages was a folded piece of paper, not in Lila's handwriting. It was a crude map, drawn in black ink, marking the clearing with an X and a scrawled note. "Safe here." The paper was dry, protected by the notebook's plastic cover, and its ink suggested it was recent, no more than a year old. Claire stared at the map in the command tent, her pulse quickening. "This wasn't Lila's," she said to Ellis, her voice low. "Someone else put this here. Someone who knew where things were." Ellis nodded, his face grim. The map suggested intent, someone who'd hidden the backpack deliberately, perhaps returning to check on it. The clearing, so remote, wasn't a place a hiker would stumble upon by accident. "We need to look at locals," Claire said. "Someone who knows these trails better than most." The investigation surged back to life. Claire requested a list of park employees, volunteers, and frequent visitors from 2022, cross-referencing them with anyone living near Cades Cove. Ellis coordinated a new search of the clearing's surrounding area, bringing in K9 units to sniff for more evidence. Sarah, meanwhile, was a bundle of raw emotion, hoped that Lila might be found, dreaded what that might mean. She sat with Peg at the trailhead, thanking her through tears. "Biscuit found her," Sarah said, stroking the dog's ears. Peg, shaken, managed a smile. "He's got a nose for trouble," she said, but her eyes were distant, haunted by the clearing's eerie quiet. That night, Claire pored over the suspect list in her office, her desk lamp casting shadows on the map. One name caught her eye: Daniel Wade, a 42-year-old maintenance worker at the park. He'd been questioned briefly in 2022, one of dozens of employees interviewed, but his alibi, working a shift at the visitor center, had checked out. Now, Claire noticed something. Wade lived in a cabin less than a mile from the clearing, on a dirt road rarely traveled. His personnel file described him as quiet, unassuming, a loner who knew the Smokies trails like his own backyard. Claire's got twisted. "He's too close," she muttered, circling his name. The breakthrough was a spark, but the truth remained elusive. Was Lila still out there, or had the forest claimed her forever? And who had drawn that map, marking the spot where her backpack lay hidden? Claire felt the case tilting toward something darker, something human. The clearing, with its ferns and azaleas, held secrets yet to be unearthed, and Daniel Wade, with his unremarkable life, was now a shadow at the edge of the frame. The discovery of Lila Harper's backpack in April 2025 sent a jolt through the long-dormant investigation, like a heart shock back to life. The Great Smoky Mountains, once a silent keeper of secrets, now hummed with renewed purpose as the Sevier County Sheriff's Office and National Park Service mobilized. Deputy Claire Monroe, her instincts sharpened by 3 years of chasing dead ends, felt the weight of the moment. The crude map found in Lila's notebook, with its chilling "safe here" scrawl, pointed to something deliberate, a human hand, not the random cruelty of nature. Daniel Wade, the park maintenance worker whose name had surfaced, became the investigation's focal point, his quiet life suddenly under a microscope. Claire sat in her office the morning after the backpack's discovery, a cup of black coffee cooling beside her. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, TBI, lab had rushed the analysis, confirming the hair in the backpack zipper was Lila's, but the map's paper yielded no fingerprints or DNA. Its ink, however, was a modern ballpoint, suggesting it was drawn long after Lila vanished. Claire's eyes lingered on Daniel Wade's file, 42, single, no criminal record, employed at Cades Cove since 2018. His cabin, a mile from the clearing, was too close for coincidence. She pulled his 2022 interview notes, routine, unremarkable, his alibi solid, but something about his proximity, his knowledge of the trails, felt like a loose thread begging to be pulled. She called Ranger Tom Ellis, who was at the trailhead overseeing a second sweep of the clearing. "We need to dig into Wade," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "He's lived near that spot for years, works the park, knows every shortcut. If that map's his, we're not dealing with a hiker who got lost." Ellis agreed, his tone grim. "I'll pull his work logs, see where he was in August 22. But Claire, if he's our guy, he's been hiding in plain sight." The thought settled heavily. 3 years of searches, and the answer might have been a man they'd walked past countless times. Claire requested a surveillance team, a rarity for Sevier County's stretched resources. By noon, 2 plainclothes deputies were stationed near Wade's cabin, a weathered one-story structure tucked down a dirt road. They reported back quickly. Wade was home, tinkering with a lawnmower in his yard, his movements unhurried, almost mechanical. He was lean, with close-cropped brown hair and a face that blended into any crowd, ordinary, forgettable. But Claire noted a detail from his file. He'd requested a transfer from trail maintenance to the visitor center just weeks after Lila's disappearance, citing personal reasons. It was a small flag, but it waved. The TBI lab delivered a breakthrough that afternoon. A re-examination of the shoelace, found 3 years earlier at the trailhead, revealed a microscopic trace of synthetic oil, the kind used in heavy machinery, like the mowers Wade maintained. It wasn't enough for a conviction, but it was enough for a warrant. Claire and Ellis drove to a judge's office, securing permission to search Wade's cabin and vehicle. They also requested his DNA, citing the hair and oil as probable cause. By evening, a team was assembled, 4 deputies, 2 TBI agents, and Ellis, who insisted on being there. "This is Lila's case," he said. "I'm seeing it through." The raid happened at dawn on April 14th. The sky streaked with pink over the Smokies. Wade answered the door in a flannel shirt, his expression calm, but his eyes darting. "What's this about?" he asked, his voice soft, almost polite. Claire handed him the warrant, her gaze steady. "We're searching your property, Mr. Wade. Step outside, please." He complied, his hands in his pockets, watching as the team moved through his cabin. Sarah, informed of the raid but kept at a distance, waited at the sheriff's office, her stomach churning with hope and fear. Inside, the cabin was Spartan, wooden floors, a single couch, a kitchen with mismatched dishes. But in a locked shed out back, the team found a trove that turned Claire's blood cold. A cardboard box held a collection of items: a woman's earring, a braided bracelet, a folded bandana, and a stack of Polaroid photos. One photo showed a young woman with dark hair, her back to the camera, standing near Abrams Falls. Claire's breath caught. It was Lila, her posture unmistakable, captured unaware. Another photo showed a different woman, blonde, on a trail Claire recognized as Gregory Bald, where Ethan Cole had vanished. The box also contained a notebook with maps, each marking remote clearings with XS, eerily similar to the one found with Lila's backpack. Wade was brought in for questioning, his demeanor still unnervingly calm. In the interrogation room, Claire and a TBI agent, Mark Ruiz, sat across from him. "Explain the photos," Claire said, sliding the Polaroid of Lila across the table. Wade's eyes flickered, but he shrugged. "I take pictures of hikers. It's a hobby." His voice was flat, rehearsed. Ruiz pressed harder, mentioning the oil on the shoelace, the maps, the proximity of his cabin. Wade's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. Forensic teams worked through the night, analyzing the shed's contents. The bracelet matched one Ethan Cole's mother had described, and the bandana bore a faint bloodstain, too degraded for DNA, but enough to escalate the case. Claire's suspicion grew. Wade wasn't just linked to Lila. He might be a serial predator, his maintenance job a perfect cover to roam the park unnoticed. Surveillance logs from the past 48 hours showed him driving to remote trailheads at odd hours, stopping to watch hikers through binoculars. "He's not just careful," Claire told Ellis. "He's obsessive." The interrogation stretched into the early hours of April 15th. Wade, under pressure, began to crack, his calm facade slipping. "I didn't hurt anyone," he muttered, his eyes fixed on the table. "I just watch. Keep things safe." When Ruiz asked about the map in Lila's notebook, Wade's hand stilled. "I don't know about any map," he said, but his voice wavered. Claire leaned forward. "We're testing your DNA against everything in that shed, Daniel. If you know where Lila is, now's the time to talk." He said nothing, but his eyes darted to the door, a flicker of panic. Sarah, waiting at the sheriff's office, was updated by a deputy. The photos, the maps, the bracelet. It was overwhelming, proof that Lila's case was no accident. But the question that haunted her remained. Where was Lila? Was she alive, hidden somewhere, or lost forever in the Smokies? Claire, too, felt the gap. They had Wade, they had evidence, but Lila's fate was still a shadow, just out of reach. As dawn broke, the team prepared to search the clearings marked on Wade's maps, hoping for answers, but bracing for the worst. The forest, with its endless trails and hidden hollows, was about to be forced to speak. But whether it would reveal Lila, or something far darker, was a truth Claire and Sarah could only dread. The Great Smoky Mountains stood silent under a gray dawn on April 16, 2025, their ridges cloaked in mist as the investigation into Lila Harper's disappearance reached its climax. Daniel Wade, the unassuming park maintenance worker, sat in a Sevier County interrogation room, his calm demeanor shattered after hours of questioning. Deputy Claire Monroe and TBI agent Mark Ruiz had pushed hard, armed with the damning evidence from Wade's shed, Polaroids, maps, a bracelet linked to Ethan Cole, and the chilling photo of Lila at Abrams Falls. The weight of it all had cracked him, and at 3:47 a.m., Wade began to talk, his voice low and detached, as if recounting someone else's life. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he said, his eyes fixed on a scratch in the table. "She was just there. Always there, sketching, walking alone. I watched her for weeks." Claire's stomach churned as Wade described his obsession with Lila, how her predictable hikes on the Abrams Falls Trail made her an easy target. He'd followed her that morning in August 2022, parking his red pickup, never caught on camera, down a service road. When Lila paused to sketch near the falls, he'd approached, offering help with a snagged shoelace. She'd brushed him off, polite but firm, and that rejection, he said, made something snap. His confession was clinical, almost bored, as he described striking her with a rock and dragging her body to a hidden cave a mile from the clearing where her backpack was later found. Wade's words led to a frantic operation. By 6 a.m., Claire, Ranger Tom Ellis, and a TBI forensic team trekked to the coordinates he'd given, a narrow cave tucked into a limestone outcrop, concealed by ferns and overgrowth. The air inside was damp, heavy with the smell of moss and decay. Flashlights swept over the rocky floor, landing on a pile of bones, human and fragile, wrapped in remnants of a green tank top. Sarah, kept at the trailhead for her safety, waited with Lila's parents, Ellen and Mark, her hands clasped tightly as she whispered, "Please, let it be her." The forensics team confirmed it within hours. Dental records and a DNA match from the bones identified Lila Harper. The cause of death was blunt force trauma, consistent with Wade's account. But Wade's confession didn't end with Lila. He admitted to Ethan Cole's murder in 2024, luring the young hiker to a remote trail under the guise of needing help with equipment. The maps in his shed marked other sites, suggesting a pattern. 5 clearings, 5 potential victims. The TBI launched a broader investigation, excavating each location, but only Lila and Ethan's remains were found. Wade's motive, he claimed, was control, a twisted need to keep the park safe from those he deemed reckless. His words, devoid of remorse, sent chills through Claire. "He's not sorry," she told Ellis later. "He's just angry he got caught." The news of Wade's arrest and confession spread through Gatlinburg like wildfire. Sarah, Ellen, and Mark gathered at the sheriff's office, their grief raw but laced with relief. "She's not lost anymore," Ellen said, clutching Lila's sketchbook, its pages now a sacred relic. Sarah nodded, tears streaming, but the closure felt hollow. Lila was gone, her life ended by a man who'd blended into their community, his cabin a mile from where they'd searched for years. The role of Chance, Peg Thornton's dog, Biscuit, sniffing out the backpack, hung over them, a reminder of how fragile justice could be. The community responded swiftly. By May, the National Park Service installed new trail cameras and increased ranger patrols, while Gatlinburg held town halls to discuss safety. A memorial for Lila and Ethan was planned at Cades Cove, a stone bench overlooking Abrams Falls, engraved with their names and a line from one of Lila's sketches. "The mountains hold us." Sarah spearheaded the effort, channeling her grief into advocacy, ensuring hikers knew the risks hidden in the Smokies' beauty. On June 1, 2025, the memorial dedication drew a crowd, locals, rangers, even Peg and Biscuit, who sat quietly by Sarah's side. Claire and Ellis stood at the back, their faces etched with exhaustion but also resolve. "We got him," Ellis said, his voice rough. "But I wish we'd gotten her back alive." Claire nodded, her eyes on the falls, their roar a constant in the shifting forest. Wade's trial was set for fall, with prosecutors confident of a life sentence. The evidence, his confession, the Polaroids, the maps, was overwhelming, but it couldn't erase the years of pain. As the ceremony ended, Sarah walked to the bench alone, placing a sprig of trillium beside the engraving. She thought of Lila's laugh, her stubborn love for these mountains, the way she'd find beauty in every leaf and stone. "You're home now," Sarah whispered, the wind carrying her words into the trees. The Smokies, both sanctuary and predator, stood witness, their secrets finally laid bare. For Lila's family, the truth was a heavy gift. Justice won by chance, love preserved in memory, and a landscape forever changed by loss.